Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas. And I have a very exciting guest today. Her name is Ginny Jablowski. I hope I didn't slaughter your name there. But anyway, she's the horse whisperer, soul whisperer. She can communicate openly with animals. And we're going to hear her story today about how this all came about and what she's able to do with animals. And I find it absolutely fascinating. We all love our animals, don't we? Yes, we do. So sometimes they have problems, and Ginny can figure out what is really going on. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi, Gail. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you for being here. I'm excited to hear your story. Let's start with, why don't you tell us about your background and where you started and how you got to this point. And I understand it's rather extensive. You probably told it a dozen times already, but hey, this is a different listening audience, and I'm sure they'll have questions. And it's just interesting.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I've probably told it somewhere between 60 and 100 times.
Oh, okay.
And I don't have specific dates really. I didn't keep a journal. So
Yeah.
in the late 90s, I was involved in international security. I was an executive security agent, but I primarily protected foreign diplomats.
Oh,
So,
wow.
right. So during that job career, it was very stressful, as you can imagine, long hours, months without a day off, exercising, high risk environments, listening to threat assessments, constantly bomb checking cars. And about 3 years into it, I just developed unidentified, let's just say chronic fatigue, pain, arthritic, degenerative type rheumatological issues, which the doctors couldn't figure out. So in 2001, I had to retire. Now, the first time I went to the doctor in 2000 for this, the first thing they did was hand me a prescription for hydrocodone, to which I went, I'm not taking that. I carry a gun. I want to go back to work,
Uh-huh.
and the doctor thought I was crazy. And in fact, I didn't realize it, but he noted in my file that I refused medication. And years later, several years later, 7 or 8 years later, a doctor brought it up to me that they had gone back that far in my history and noticed that I refused the medication. So after 7 or 8 years of trying every non-narcotic prescription out there, including methotrexate, which really was not helpful, I finally said, okay, fine, I'll take the opioids. And that's a very slippery slope, because we all know now that it's an anesthetic. It doesn't
Heal.
make the pain go away. It masks
Yeah.
the pain. It anesthetizes the neural pathways that are sending the signals to the brain. So the body says, oh, you can't feel the pain. Let me just make more superhighways for you, right? And so you need more. And so 4 years later, I had a near-death experience. And just like it says on the package of fentanyl, the FDA warning says, your brain can forget to tell your lungs to breathe if you take this medication. And that's exactly what happened to me.
Oh, my God.
So
Wow.
I had a near-death experience, and I was propelled into a white space, and there was a
Interesting.
deciduous tree and a man that looked to me very much like my sort of Christian American version of Jesus, right? With a white linen robe and a royal bluish sort of tunic over, and then a little belt that looked like a very simple rope belt, but it was golden. And
Interesting.
he walked toward me and he said, "You've suffered enough." And he handed out his hand to mine, and I went to reach out to him. And I thought immediately in my consciousness, because I was still me, I still had all of my thoughts and faculties. And I said, oh yeah, I was on a lot of medication and I just got my medication increased. So, oh yeah, I'm probably dead. It makes sense. And,
wow.
And then I had the most ironic thought I could have ever had. And that was immediately, who will take care of my husband if I leave? And the truth is, my husband cared for me. He brought me meals in bed. I was pretty much bedridden. He carried me to the bathroom. He drove me to the chiropractor. He was the one that drove the car. He drove me to the doctor in Phoenix, which is 2 hours away, to get my medication refilled and, take all the necessary tests that are required constantly to be on, opiates. And it was pretty scary. I didn't remember immediately, but sometime later I was reminded that in that experience, the animals were actually who encouraged me not to go with Jesus, but to stay because I had something important to do.
What animals did you see at that time?
Horses and donkeys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what you've been around all your life? Is that, do you think?
Not my entire life. Not my entire life.
Okay.
So I heard a noise behind me just as I was about to put my hand in Jesus's hand. I turned around and the horses and donkeys from a sanctuary where I had volunteered were there saying, don't go, don't go. Don't you remember? There's something important you have to do. So that part of it, I didn't immediately remember, except that the next morning when I spoke with my husband, I said, I can't explain it. I don't know why. I have no reason to even think this could possibly be true, but there's something important I have to do. I don't know what it is. So I have to live. I have to get off of opioids. And he said, whatever it takes, if you want to live, let's figure out how to make that happen. So that was my last near-death experience. And that's what launched me on this journey. I did have a near-death experience when I was 3 months old. Pardon me, Gail, were you going to?
Pardon?
Oh, I thought I interrupted you.
Oh, no, not at all.
I did have, I'm sorry. I did have a near-death experience when I was 3 months old also, which I remembered in an intuitive session, which spontaneously turned into an unintended regressive experience. And when I was 3 months old, I developed whooping cough, and it was quite severe. And I was packed in ice in a tent in the hospital in Pennsylvania. And I had turned blue, and the doctor said it didn't look good. My mother told me this around, I think I was 12 or 13 years of age. And during that experience, I did have a near-death experience. And it was different in that I was propelled into a black velvety space, almost a void of nothingness. And there was a voice all around me that was a masculine voice that I identified as God or creator. And I said, I can't go back. I can't go back. Please don't make me. And we fought back and forth. He said, no, you have to go back. And I said, no, you don't understand. It's going to be a very difficult life. I really don't want to do this. I won't be able to survive this, the pain, the trauma. We fought back and forth 7 or 8 times. And I think it was the 8th time, he said, you're going back. I'll make you stronger to withstand these events. And I attribute that to the fact that I didn't become an alcoholic or a drug addict or end up in jail or, worse. So when I came back in my body, I was quite hysterical and very angry at God. And that was an underlying feeling for me, a core feeling for me my entire life. I was very quick to anger. And I didn't necessarily know why. Now, I did have a difficult, challenging childhood and upbringing and a lot of traumatic experiences there, but nothing that would have created as much anger as I was carrying around under the surface. It wasn't on the surface, but I was very quick to anger for some new experience that might have set me off.
Wow.
So those are the two which people would identify as near-death experiences. And Gail, you mentioned that you might want me to talk about the other two interesting, what people would refer to as spiritually transformative experiences that I've had.
Yes. I think everybody would like to know. It's fascinating. And even that you talked to Creator at 3 months of age. I mean, we don't even know language then, but that just shows the spirit is in charge, really knows what's going on. But anyway,
well, the human body might not know language, but the infinite soul knows everything.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was
and
getting
the
at.
infinite soul is what we embody, and we might get to that later in this conversation.
Okay.
From my experience anyway.
Okay.
So roundabout, I think it was, let me think, about 96, I was riding on the back of a motorcycle going, really fast on the freeway, 90, 95. In the fast lane in California, that's not unheard of. Everybody goes, 80 or 90 miles an hour in the fast lane in California. And I was on the back of a motorcycle, very nice motorcycle. It wasn't my husband that was driving. It was a friend of ours. Mm-hmm. And I was holding on, my hands were clasped in front of me, and something pulled one of my hands off, my right hand, and I whipped around in the turbulence, and I was facing the other way, looking at the black sedan that was pacing with us. And I just said, that's where I'm going to die, right there on that windshield. And I only had one hand, and it was around a very, sturdy jacket. There was nothing to grab onto on the driver's jacket. And so my left hand was pulling off, and my bottom was coming off the back of the seat. And I was just turned around violently in the turbulence, and my arm was flailing. And, I had a big helmet on, so I couldn't scream or ask for help. Nobody would have been able to hear me anyway. And I thought, this is it. Here I go. That's, and I had 2 small children at the time. So it wasn't something that was expected at all. And what I can only describe as the invisible hand of God came out of nowhere, bigger than my entire body, and propelled me forward back on the seat and wrapped my arm back around the driver. It was remarkable.
My word. That was the same Creator that said, nope, you're going back there, and saying, nope, you're not done yet.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And
what
then
a scary experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that was remarkable. And the only person I really ever discussed that with was my husband, because it was so unbelievable. And, I lived in the 3D world. I believed in Newtonian physics and doctors and, psychiatrists, that they just knew everything.
Our programming, yes.
Right. And then
did the driver of the motorcycle have any clue what happened?
I don't believe he did. And I don't recall. I might have been in shock. If I did say anything, probably. I don't remember. I don't recall having a conversation with him, but he was a friend of ours that we rode dirt bikes with. My husband and I and our children all rode dirt bikes recreationally.
Wow. That's so amazing.
I'm sorry?
I just said, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty remarkable.
Wow.
And a few years after that, I was driving my car, SUV, on the freeway near Los Angeles, about 100 miles east of Los Angeles in the Inland Empire on the 10 freeway in the fast lane. And my husband called me on the phone and announced that he needed to have a surgery for something that was quite painful. And, I was very hypersympathetic and empathic my whole life. And when he described the reason why he had to have a surgery, I passed out driving in the fast lane. I dropped the phone, and my vision went down. And as my vision was going down, I saw semi trucks in the next lane and the next lane and the next lane. And no matter how I tried, to push my foot on the gas, I never would have been able to get in front of all those semi trucks. And so I just passed out. And about 20 minutes later, we know this because he hung up the phone. So about 20 minutes later, I woke up in a McDonald's parking lot in my car and picked up the phone. And it was somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes later. And I called my husband, and he said, "What happened?" And I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I'm pretty sure I just died and killed a bunch of people on the freeway. And then I just woke up here." So he drove from 100 miles away. He was in the Los Angeles area. He drove and picked me up. We left my car where it was. He drove me into the Los Angeles area where my doctor was at that time, I think Culver City, and took me to the doctor. And the doctor said, "Oh, you just have vasovaga. It'll probably get worse as you get older. You just, you're very sensitive and you might pass out. Just because you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Go home." So he drove me 100 miles back to my car, and we only spoke of it a couple of times. And again, I just said, "I guess there must be something important I have to do." But we didn't. I mean, we were just regular working people. I didn't think there was anything other than raising our children. And we thought, well, maybe we just have to be here, or I just have to be here, to raise our children. Maybe our children will do something remarkable or special. And that was the last time. Now, notice I referred to these two experiences as spiritually transformative. People call these experiences spiritually transformative. And I can only imagine that they were intended to be spiritually transformative. But for whatever reason, I did not seek spiritual counseling. I didn't go to a bookstore. I didn't get a reading. I didn't ask for help. I just kept living my life as usual. And I think that was about 1998. So when I got really sick, started getting really sick, it was 2000. So my soul tried to give me a message, tried to give me a message, tried to give me a message. And then finally, it just had to take me offline. I wasn't supposed to be in that field. I wasn't supposed to be active when 9/11 happened. Because I would have gone to the Middle East.
Been there. Wow.
For a private contractor. Yeah. And I'm sure I would have passed, So, or maybe had another near-death experience. I don't know. Pardon me. But my soul definitely did not want me involved in that. So I did retire in 2001, just before 9/11. So.
Wow. That's amazing. So you never really found out what happened in that 20-minute period.
I mean, I've had different Akashic Records readings, and intuitive people say they've had visions about it. And one theory that is an alternative theory is that, and I don't know if your audience is familiar with this, but when we make choices that aren't in alignment with our highest soul purpose, fractals of us sort of fracture off and create alternate timelines, alternate experiences for us until we begin to heal and reintegrate ourselves. So one version of the story is that in an alternate timeline, I did pass away, and my car flipped in between the medium and the median and medium and the semi truck. And then I flipped over, and then there was like a 50-something car pileup, and several people passed away. That is an alternate timeline. I've also had intuitives say that they've had a vision of an angelic hand just coming down and picking up my car and lifting it up and putting me down in the McDonald's parking lot. I've had visions of my car floating, like coming up off the highway and floating in front of the semi trucks and kind of floating and setting down. So there's been a lot of spiritual perspectives, but I can't say for sure, what any of that was.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, obviously something happened.
I'm still
And
here.
yes, exactly. And the recall of exactly what was happening before you passed out too. I mean, something had to have happened because you passed out. So
Right.
I kind of like the angelic hand picking up the car and relocating you. I really don't know, but oh my goodness, what?
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And we do talk. I'm many on my Many of my listening people are very familiar with timelines. Um, Drake frequently talks about them, and so do some of the others. So, wow. Now, after you've had these profound experiences, you somehow found you were able to communicate with animals, or did you always have that ability, or did it increase it substantially? How did that work?
Well, right before the near-death experience in 2012, which is the first one I shared,
Mm-hmm.
I was told by a psychic, she said, "Are you on narcotics?" And I had never met a psychic before in my life, but
Mm-hmm.
she was communicating with some of the horses where I was volunteering, and I
Mm-hmm.
never really knew this existed. I had heard one story maybe in 2007 about animal communication, which was really fascinating, but that's another show. um, I'm sorry, I lost my place. This happens sometimes.
That's
Oh,
okay. It's no
the
problem.
so right before my near-death
Happens
experience,
to me a lot.
there was a
Okay.
woman communicating with the horses at the sanctuary where I volunteered as I was in decline.
Mhm.
And I happened to be chatting with her one day, and she said, "I hope you don't mind my saying, but are you on narcotics?" And I said, "Yes, I'm on opioids." And she said, "Well, your auric field looks like Swiss cheese. If I were you, I'd prepare for death. I would get my affairs in order." And
Wow.
so it was shortly after that where I just didn't have the energy to go back to the sanctuary and volunteer anymore. And she said that it was very common for people in hospice to have degraded auric fields, and for people in hospice to have the experience of visitation of family who have crossed over, of childhood friends, etc. Often making amends, saying goodbye, sharing love, right, in hospice experience. And I did have one experience with a horse where I was given some visions and just a little bit of an emotion, but that was just the one time. And so, because she said that's normal for people in hospice who are about to die, I didn't really think of
Nice.
it.
Yeah.
I didn't really think of it as animal communication.
Mm-hmm.
But when I
Oh.
woke up from the near-death experience, pretty much immediately, I could see multidimensionally. I could perceive things that other people couldn't see. I could see chakras and meridians and the nervous system, and hear the trauma trapped in the nervous system, the the programming of emotions that were unresolved in people's bodies. I could speak with people who had crossed over. I knew things I would have no way of knowing that many times were verified. I knew when people were sick. I knew when people were going to pass away. It took me a long time to understand this because I never heard the word chakra before in my life, ever. I think I did yoga once, and although I felt good, I thought it was a huge waste of time. So, yeah, I was not a very awake and aware, enlightened, educated person by any means. I was, a busy, stressed out, unhappy person. So,
Wow.
and when I was sick and bedridden, I pretty much had all of that stripped away from me, all pride, all vanity, all hubris, all arrogance. It was just stripped away. I just felt like I had nothing to offer anybody, and I was worthless, because
Wow.
I slept 16 hours a day and I watched HGTV for the other 8 or so. you know
Wow. Okay. Holy smokes.
yeah, it was pretty bad.
So those when did you start communicating with animals then? Is that when that started? Are you able to differentiate between when you're getting something from an animal and when you're getting something from a human? I would assume you are, but I don't know. I'm just going to ask.
Well, my experience now is I have almost the same level of gifts and abilities as I did right after my near-death experience, but now I understand it. I have discernment, I have boundaries, I have a lot more conscious understanding of what's happening to me. So if you were to ask me that question for today or for a decade ago, the answer is different.
Oh,
So
okay.
I could immediately hear plants and animals talk. I could immediately see energetic attachments, astral entities attached to people and animals. I could talk to, ants and flowers, and plants would tell me when they needed water or a bigger pot or what have you, or if they felt neglected, or if they needed a nutrient, but that took me many years I had never heard of that. And I just so innocently, naively just asked everybody, you see that dead person? Can you hear that? Have you ever heard of this? Most people just thought I was crazy. So, I just started Googling psychic and alternative healing and everything you can imagine. So because I was just Googling on the internet, I had some pretty wacky experiences with lots of different kinds of people. It took me a while to find my stride and begin to get into some legitimate spiritual education classes, and I began to travel and do more, let's say, contemporary metaphysical mainstream education, and read extensively and traveled extensively and sought out masters to try to find somebody who could understand what was happening to me, because most people out there in the metaphysical community learned what they learned in a book, not from a lot of pure experience or intuitive experience. And most people didn't know what to do with me. I didn't fit any boxes or any protocols. And in addition to that, I had a lot of trauma to overcome too. And there wasn't a lot of talk about that a decade ago. It's more
no, there wasn't. Not right. Compared to what you hear now.
Yeah. So I was literally a pioneer, a scout going over the mountain all by myself, guided by horses and my soul, on a healing journey. And I went down a lot of rabbit holes, according to my soul, so that I would have the experience and know the difference. I met a lot of people that I was certain I had soul agreements with, but who were not prepared to honor those soul agreements, or who were not healed enough or awake enough themselves to honor those soul agreements. I ran into a lot of people who didn't believe me, who invalidated me. That happened a lot. People that I paid thousands of dollars I would pay to people, and my ability was different than theirs. So they had to say that I was wrong, or I wasn't accurate, or who knows, really.
It's all in your head kind of thing. Wow.
Because I would always perceive, I'm sorry. I, in order, for the sake of the conversation, I have to speak the way I'm going to speak.
Please.
I am able to perceive at octaves of consciousness much higher than most people could at that time, or most people that I have met. So for example, if most intuitive people looked at someone and saw that they were really traumatized, or they had a lot of unhealed wounds, I would look at that same person, and when they talked, I would see music notes come out of their mouth, and I would say, oh, you're the most beautiful soul. When you talk, I feel so peaceful. It's like when you talk, the frequency of peace is just coming through you. And, there would be other intuitive people that would just look at me like, you're crazy. Like, that lady isn't disseminating the frequency of peace. And I could clearly see it. I could see the music notes. I could feel the difference in the frequency and the vibrations of consciousness. Many times I would see multidimensional beings who were stuck and needed help, and people who were trained decades ago in certain indigenous practices or what have you would just tell them to go away. And no, that's not what they need. All they need is one more person to send them love or gratitude, and they can be free and go on their way. And I was told, don't tell me I've been doing this for 4 decades and you don't know what you're talking about. And so I would just walk away and go around the corner and send gratitude to the, or find another person and say, hey, do me a favor. You might not believe me right now, but there's this being here and he just needs one more person. It can't just be me. It's just one more person to just send love and gratitude for their experience. And then they turn into light, little angelic being or whatever, and then fly away. And I can't begin to tell you the number of people that just didn't accept my version of reality. And because they couldn't, they had to make me wrong. So on my journey, not even did I have to overcome my own trauma, my own doubt, my own unworthiness, my own unforgiveness, my own ancestral stuff that was heaped on me. And I could go on and on about that. But I also had to overcome all the spiritual people who looked me in the eyes and told me I was wrong.
False light.
Some, and then some not prepared to move forward, not maybe making a choice to, as some, there is a theory that there are waves to this evolution, first waves.
Yeah.
So maybe making a choice, a bodhisattva vow, to stay behind and not go as fast as a few other people and wait for the, the crowd to thin out or what have you. Some people were just too traumatized and they couldn't open their heart. Their heart wasn't fully open, their sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra, not fully healed. So their psycho-spiritual apparatus not open as it could be. They haven't embodied as much of their soul. Most of us are embodying like 5, 6, 7, 8% of our soul essence that we are actually capable of embodying. And when I came back from my near-death experience, I had a lot more strands of DNA were activated. All my psychic senses were turned on. So, sometimes too, when people compare themselves to you and they worked and they did this and they've been doing it for so long, and then here you are, you just show up kind of silly little girl doesn't know what she's talking about. So, and I have to say, I mean, that's how I approached it, with like this childlike wonder, this curiosity, this whole new, this energy that just propelled me forward to want to learn, and I was totally honest about what I didn't know, as I am today. I don't know what I don't know, right? And so
exactly.
And I get it just triggered some people, I guess. And I'm sorry, that makes me almost cry. It made it harder than it had to be. That's for sure.
That's sad. Yeah.
But you know what? I have so many clients now that have really suffered. And I can honestly say to these people, I've been there too. I've felt this. I've had this family experience, this parental experience, this experience of being a mother and being estranged from my child, or whatever that might be, or having, a marriage that didn't work out. I can honestly relate to some of these people. And I think because I have overcome so much, I think it makes people have faith in me that I will genuinely have compassion for them. And I find that to be the case almost every day.
Yes, your genuineness just kind of exudes from you. Yeah, and I'm sorry that you had those experiences with people. I think many of us who are in the light worker field have dealt with loneliness. You're feeling like you're the only one. Nobody understands you. but you really you really went through it.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's well, I guess all those experiences is what has led you to where you are today, and your abilities, I'm sure, are just stronger and more focused and more uh, able to be utilized to help animals or people, whichever it happens to be at the time. Would you say that's true?
Yes, I mean, I don't have every single ability that ever existed. I mean, I all of my psychic senses are turned on, but I certainly have a lane, that I exist within. Like, I'm not a medical medium, and I'm not an evidentiary medium. I'm not a prolific psychic medium. If a lot of, let's just say you and I were talking on the phone, Gail, and some family members came forward, I might say, well, your aunt said this and your mother said that. And you might say, oh, but that sounds like something my aunt would say. And so I don't, maybe if multiple family members are coming forward, which happens a lot, I
Oh,
might not
wow.
be very clear as to which one is saying it. What
Hmm.
is being said is clear, but not necessarily in spirit, which one. So there are lots of things that I don't do, that I can't do, that I don't enjoy doing. you know, um, I have a specific lane and a specific purpose, and I try to stay in my lane, and I try not to, bill myself as any sort of an expert ever on anything, but certainly not in the
I do
same
that.
breath.
I yeah, I can definitely relate to that because I don't claim anything myself.
Right.
Um, and I haven't had, the kind of experience that you had, but I've had some trauma in my life too. Um, but that is, by the way, when I talked to you on the phone, I didn't have any relatives come forward, did I?
Oh, I don't think so.
No. The reason I asked is my mom and my father passed not that long ago. So, but anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
I
So,
don't think they're here right now. I have to be honest, just before the call, about 20 minutes before the call, I started feeling a little bit of odd energy. So I might not be as clear. I tried to go outside and clear myself. So if some of your audience members see anything weird in my energy field, I did start to see a little something happening, but I have no clue what that might be right now. But it did feel like there was something outside. So anyway,
interesting.
but I don't think it's your family. If I ask if it's your family, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not a problem. But I just thought I'd check. But I think you've been very clear about what you're speaking about. And I'm very curious about how your communication with the horse works. My own personal experience is the horses that I had in my life when I did have them were, I felt so emotionally connected to them. I just, I felt like they could read me,
Mhm.
and they gave me a lot of joy, just like my dog does. But um, so do you see pictures from animals, or do you actually hear? How does that communication work? Just let me ask you that. I don't, so I
Well,
understand.
would it help just to take just a couple of minutes to help you understand how it evolved? Just a few
Sure,
minutes.
sure. Go ahead. Go.
So on my healing journey, I finally did meet some healers that said, you're healing me more than I'm healing you. You need to share these messages. You need to put out a shingle. And I said, no, you have no clue how traumatized I am. And because I could see my own trauma and feel the imbalance within me. And I said, I am not anybody's healer. No, and I still didn't have the definition I have of healing today. So I knew that was missing something, right? And so my definition now of a healer, it's more as teacher, as guide, as teacher, to help people remember that they are their own true healer.
Facilitator. Yes.
Right. And that I can help people very wonderfully, see what they can't see and perceive what they can't perceive about themselves where they're stuck. And I certainly needed a lot of that on my journey. I certainly did. But most times when people said they knew what was wrong with me, they were going to heal me, they were going to do psychic surgery on me, they were going to, do this, that, or the other, that energy came right back. because my soul wasn't letting me give my power away to someone else.
Ooh.
And I could see it come back, and tens and tens
Wow.
and tens of thousands of dollars, down the drain, except for the education and don't do that again. Don't try that again. So eventually it just became so that people, healers were referring their clients to me. And I said, well, I can't charge. I don't have 30 years experience like these other people do, but everybody said you have to charge something. So I'd be like, if you have $15 or $20, I'll give you the message. Well, I ended up being on the phone with people for like an hour, 90 minutes. Pretty soon I had clients all over the world in more than a dozen countries or more. And I was on the phone, pardon me, like 10 hours a day. Excuse me. And that was getting a little bit out of hand. It happened way too fast for me, right?
Wow. Yeah, go ahead.
So I said, wait, I can't do this now. I need to go on more of a spiritual journey myself and heal more. So I did that pretty aggressively for about 2 more years. And then I said, okay, I'm ready. So I contacted a few people, and I had several clients again right away, several clients a day, just from word of mouth and all the extensive traveling I did on my own healing journey. And what happened was, as I was working with the people, sharing how I overcame trauma, sharing the template of the universe that I see through, right? Talking to the soul, talking to the guides, are we managing our own energy, stuff like that. People's animals started coming forward. And I thought, oh, that was entertaining. Oh, did you have a cat, or there's a dog in your field? Or I think when you were a little girl, you had a Chihuahua, or did you have a horse that was black when you were young, or, whatever. And so a few months maybe into this happening to me, I meditated one day and I said to my team, this is really bothering me. This is really annoying. Why are all these animals, interfering? And I have really had enough of this. I am really trying to help people here. and I was kind of sassy about it, and this giant horse showed up in my room in my meditation. Her head was like 6-7 times the size of my body. And she said, real innocently, she said, don't you remember? We're the ones that brought you back from your near-death experience, and we helped to guide you on your journey of overcoming trauma and learning everything you've learned. Now we are here to ask you to share this with the animal kingdom, because there aren't enough animal communicators talking about traumatized animals. There are far too many animal communicators giving messages that everything is perfect and all the animal souls are here to help people, and they're all so wise and amazing. And there aren't people willing to accept that animals have emotional trauma, physical trauma, psychological trauma, spiritual, energetic trauma. And we need you to be our voice. And I went, yeah, no, I didn't remember that. I was kind of like blindsided, And
That's
so I said, okay, well, that's true, but I'm not an animal communicator. I don't have any training in animal communication. Nobody knows I talk to animals. Where do you advertise? Like,
how do I begin? Yeah, really.
Where does one go to become an animal communicator?
Where do I start?
Exactly. Yeah. And she says, don't worry about that. It's all handled. And I said, okay. So from time to time over the next year, I told people, I think I'm supposed to be working with animals, but I'm not sure how. Well, one day in 2017, about a year later, maybe a little more, I was sleeping and I was woken up about 1 a.m. to this very strong voice, go to San Diego. I said, you woke me up. I'm not going to San Diego. I don't know anybody in San Diego. Why would I go to San Diego? I'm not going. I need to go back to sleep, because I love my sleep. Me and sleep are best friends. So about 3:00, go to San Diego. And I woke up and no, I don't know anybody in San Diego. There's no reason for me to go to San Diego. I am not going to San Diego. So 5:30, really loud. Go to San Diego.
Oh my word.
I woke up,
Wow.
I said, razzle, frat, I'm never going to go back to sleep now. It's 5:30. Oh, so I got up and I turned on the water to make myself a cup of tea. And I grabbed my phone and I turned on my phone and I went on Facebook. There was a fire in northern San Diego County and 1,000 horses were displaced.
Oh.
So I said, oh, I guess
I just got
going to
goosebumps.
San Diego.
Wow.
So I read a blog that I wrote 3 or 4 years ago. And in the blog, it says, I waited a couple of days to San Diego. And this morning, up until today, in my memory, I threw stuff in my suitcase and I went to San Diego. But as I recall now that I read the blog, and I have horrible memory, and I don't know if it's from the opioids or the near death or the combination or ascension symptoms or what, but my memory is not great. But I just read a blog I wrote about 3 years ago, and it said that I waited another day or so. And I called people because I hesitated because I didn't feel confident, about the message, and I didn't know anybody, and I wasn't an animal communicator. So I didn't have a business card that said right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So according to the blog, I waited some time and then I drove there, and I didn't have any place to stay. I didn't know anybody. I saw a lady make a post on the internet, and she was a chiropractor and said, oh, I have essential oils if anybody needs essential oils. And I reached out to her, and she is now one of my best friends. But I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm coming to San Diego. I don't know anybody, where do you go? What do you do? And she responded to me. She didn't believe in animal communication at the time. And then I drove there not knowing where I was going to stay or what I was going to do. And I had friends that lived about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of San Diego. And I called and said, hey, I'll be driving by because I'm going to San Diego. And they said,
I don't know why, but I'm going there. No.
Exactly. And they said, well, we just bought a house in San Diego. It's empty, but you can stay there if you want. So I said,
is that the universe providing or what?
Oh, we'll put towels in the bathroom for you. The electric is on, you'll be on your own for food. And I said, yes, I will. That would be great. So I stayed for about 10 days, maybe almost 2 weeks. And after that time, so many people, and I really didn't know anything about Facebook. I had a Facebook account, but I guess there are all these private groups that if you have this hobby or you have friends and all these different groups, horse groups. Well, I was helping horses, and a lot of people were posting about me on Facebook and Instagram. And within a couple months, I had several hundred animal communication clients just from being in San Diego for like 10 days. So spirit came through.
Amazing. That's an amazing story. So were you able to help the horses that had been in the fire?
Yeah. Well, the fact is that the horses that were critically injured or burned or had smoke inhalation were taken to a facility that regular people weren't allowed. Only veterinarians were allowed there. The 900 horses who were not severely injured, but maybe just psychologically distressed, etc.,
traumatized. Yeah.
There were about 900 or so. They were at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and that's where I went.
Okay.
So there were many horses that had to be sedated, and I would go and stand by horses that were, weaving and swaying and calling and stressed. And within 20 minutes, a half an hour, they would calm down. But then after I left, about an hour or two, they'd start up again. So several horses had been sedated multiple times by the time I got there to try to help them. Some of them it helped permanently, some of them not permanently, but it gave them a chance to eat and drink water and poop and, not colic and stuff like that. So that's pretty much how my animal communication career got started.
Wow, you just kind of got catapulted into it.
Yeah.
From a message that came to you. 3 times. And there wasn't a visual behind the message. Is that right? I mean, you
Oh,
just heard this. It wasn't like the horse, or it wasn't a being that you were
I
able to
don't
see.
I mean, I think energetically my understanding is it was my soul telling me, it
Oh,
was
okay.
the voice that I hear that is my soul.
Oh,
Um
okay. Okay.
my internal voice is my soul. Yeah, no, just go to San Diego, and then Facebook revealed why.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
We have a question in the chat, and maybe you can answer it for this person. Um,
sure.
Here it is. It says, "I'm in Romania on the countryside, and some neighbors keep their dogs in chains. I can feel their pain, and don't know what I can do to help. I need help, please. Is there any advice that you might be able to?"
Send love, and later in the conversation I'll share some exercises.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is be upset. The worst thing you can do is project that their circumstances are less than ideal. The worst thing you can do is judge their circumstances or judge the people. That is not healthy for you or the animals or the people. A lot of animals are kept in chains and they're just fine. And that's the life they chose.
So, are you saying the animals choose their life as well as humans?
For the
Based on.
most part, I wouldn't say 100% of the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had never heard that before. That's why I asked. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Okay. Wow. So when you communicate with animals, is it in pictures? Is it in words? How does that occur?
It depends on the psychic ability of the animal and how they communicate, at what level they communicate. So, just like
Wow.
people, there are different, and again, in order to have the conversation, I have to talk in terms of level or style or psychic ability.
Okay.
So, some people communicate with animals and all they see is the pictures that the thoughts in the mind create.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some people feel emotion. Some people see color and they have no idea what it means. Some people hear tiny little snippets of information and fill in the rest because maybe they feel some emotion attached to it. Some people get paragraphs, like a dissertation.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some people, sometimes I see documents with writing on them. I perceive all of my psychic senses are active. So I perceive in the way the animal communicates to me, at what level the animal communicates to me. I can feel pain in their body if they want me to. I see pictures, sometimes black and white, sometimes color, sometimes full on movies, sometimes um, just opaque images. Um, yeah, all my psychic senses are pretty
Keen.
tuned. Yeah. Yeah.
Well tuned. That's
Yeah.
another way of putting it. Wow. Someone made a comment about that horses usually help their owners psychically, or emotionally, or whatever. And I would have to vouch for that, because I always felt that way about my horses when I had them, and I do miss them to this day. my I don't even want to talk about it because it'll make me sad. Um, but it's just like my dog. I live by myself, so she means a lot to me, because if I'm feeling sad or whatever, she's right there and makes me laugh, smile, or
Mhm.
whatever. So I'm very connected to animals. So,
Unfortunately, some animals are causing great harm to themselves by supporting humans. So there's
wow.
really nothing that is usual. I take
Hmm.
exception to usual. um, uh, every animal, in my experience, is as unique as any human being I've ever met. Every single animal and their circumstances are as unique as every single human.
Wow. I can see how that would be possible. I really can. That's fascinating. Just like the reason I say that is because I thought, well, actually, when thinking, like, if something happened to my dog that I have now, most people would say, get another one. But you don't get the same personality in the animal. I mean, not that there wouldn't be another one that you could have that would, bring you joy and love and so on. But I don't, they are. I can see why you would say that. They're all different. Every different animal that I've had over the course of my lifetime were unique in their own way. Um, and I can't imagine having one to replace them. Um, you mentioned that sometimes people are bad for the animals. What do you mean by that? How could you take that a little bit, explain that a little more?
I don't remember saying that. When did I say that?
Maybe I just put it wrong in the way that I said it. It sounded as though some people are not good for the animals. That was what I got out of it. Maybe I
I think I
misinterpreted.
said I think I said some animals are causing themselves harm. They're
Yeah,
self-harming
that's what I
by
was. Yeah, okay.
supporting humans. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to
Hmm.
explain that more.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, look, as humans go, there are helpers and then there are shadow helpers and there are healers and then there are shadow healers and there are rescuers and then there are shadow rescuers, right? We know that to
Okay.
be true, right?
Mhm.
We have a lot of different reasons and complex patterns and soul agreements underneath why we all do everything, and it's not as obvious as it seems on the surface. And the same is true for the animals. And unfortunately, so many animals have been told that they're here to be in service to people and they're here to help people and they're here to solve our problems, that some animals have taken on this horrific burden and they don't know what to do with the human energy because they're not in the wild anymore. They're in domestication. They're taken away from their mother far too soon. So the mother doesn't get time to teach them what they need to learn about being in a pack or a herd or managing their energy or appropriate boundaries and all of those conversations that any human mother would have with a child, teaching us what is appropriate to do in public and what is not appropriate to do in public and all of that. um, some animals get pretty twisted, and some animals have past life agreements with their owners that they feel responsible for a death or a wrong in a past life, and they've come back to make up for it in this life, and they're very confused. And just like a lot of people, they are not getting healing in between lifetimes. They're not getting adequate counseling in between lifetimes, and they're coming back and they're fulfilling these contracts and agreements, which have very detrimental consequences to both the animal and the human. But again, it's it's unique to each and every animal and each and every human and each and every relationship.
Wow, that's fascinating because I'm sure I'm not alone in this thought that I never thought of animals as having contracts or soul contracts or agreements like that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my own naivety, but I just never thought of it that way. That's fascinating.
So that my lane is everything that's going on with the soul that agreed to incarnate in the body and have this incarnate experience. And what is the purpose of the soul in being here? And where is there misunderstanding between the soul and the human personality, and everything that is preventing the human personality from expressing the pure divine soul, which is all the trauma and all the burdens and all the unhealed wounds and unforgiveness. And animals often have similar traumas, stressors, misunderstandings, etc. Some animals truly are, I'm going to say it just for emphasis, just an aspect of the soul family of the animal.
Oh,
And
okay.
some animals are souls that are evolving beyond the soul family into a higher dimensional consciousness awareness. Some animals are humans that are living out karmic consequences because they were mean to dogs or cats or sheep or pigs or horses in past lives. some animals are trying out being a horse because they used to be a zebra in a past life and they wanted to know what it was like to be a horse. And those aren't Akashic records that are readily available to most people. There are, in my understanding, what I've experienced is there's 3 levels to our DNA, active DNA, that correspond to 3 levels to Akashic records. So the planetary, galactic, and universal.
Wow.
And the universal records I refer to as the sacred library of knowledge. That's everything every soul has ever been. And I have always had access to the galactic level, and only recently, maybe a year ago exactly, almost, was given access to the universal records. And the way I discovered it was I was working with a horse that had trauma to her solar plexus, and I couldn't figure it out. And I hired other people to try to figure it out, and neither could they. And I prayed for the answer. And I said, for whatever reason, I'm not being given access. And I was immediately propelled to another level of awareness for the animal soul. And there was like a guardian or a gatekeeper there. And I don't want to use language for it, because if people try to go do this on their own and they're not invited, you can have negative consequences of trying to do things we're not ready for, And so I wasn't really invited in or anything. I'm not saying I was special. I was just given an answer here. And it sort of kind of fell through like a wall or a fabric, universal fabric. And the answer sort of fell through to me. And it was after that when I asked some very learned, very scholarly, old, 20, 30 years older than me, very experienced friends of mine, what that was all about. And they explained what it was. So after I knew what it was for several months and I meditated on it, I was just spontaneously then told that I had evolved enough to be given access at that level, so that most animals don't carry the imprints of past lives where they might have been a predator, because that would be too confusing or scary. Most, I said. But I've met a dog who was like, oh yeah, I'm a master. I've been around a long time. I've been a water buffalo, and I've been a toucan, and I've been a monkey, and I have stories to tell. How much time do you have? And those animals are animals that have access to a level beyond what I, had. And there are a lot of people who wouldn't even believe that. They would just say that's not true. But it's not true to them because they don't have access to that knowledge and information. And as we evolve, and as our frequency rises, and as we heal our lower chakras, and as we open our heart chakra, and as our psychospiritual apparatus is activated to deeper and deeper levels of awareness, our soul begins to allow us to see more and more and more. Which is why, Gail, I am such a passionate proponent of self-awareness and inquiry and healing and opening our heart, and a journey to the self to become vertically in alignment with our soul and our soul purpose. Because in my experience, when I did that, that's when I was provided with more answers, more solutions, more healing, and answers and solutions and healing for other people as well. And I could stand witness for others because I experienced it myself. So there's a lot of people out there, they want the quick fix, they want to manifest this or that, or they want the shiny new, healing modality. And I do see people's relationship with their own soul, their own soul purpose be misdirected in some of those cases. They are decisions made by the ego and decisions not made in alignment with the soul and the agreement of the soul. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to take what you just said and go back a little bit and say, during that 2-year period, what were you doing to advance your own soul that may help other people? I mean, everybody's uniquely different, and different things may work for them or whatever. But what did your path entail?
A lot. I've done more than 20,000 hours of healing, studying, traveling, self-analysis, talking to spiritual counselors, sharing my visions with people, getting Jungian dream analysis and, feedback, right? So I've gone on a journey of what I call self-inquiry. Every single thought I ever had, I was very anxious to know what the source of the thought was. Is it my consciousness? Is it my unconscious? Is it a fractured part of me? Is it my child? Is it my mind? Is it my subconscious? Is it a past life part of me? Where were the thoughts coming from? And so when I went on a journey to understand the source of every single thought I ever had, that's when my healing journey really kicked into overdrive. And I focused very, very much on healing my lower chakras and my heart chakra. And of course, on that journey, things will evolve that are affecting, your third eye, your ears and your throat, etc. But I focused on all of the lower, the dense, the third dimensional programs within the lower chakras very, very intensely, very, very intensely. I had clairvoyance read my energy. I have just been on an absolute mission to know myself, to raise my frequency through clearing the dense, all of the story, all of the wounds, multidimensionally from past lives. I've been made aware of more than 2,000 past lives that I had. I mean, I really went on a deep dive.
Wow. And a lot was exposed to you in the process. And that's what's brought you to where you are in terms of what you're able to do at this point in time. Is that correct?
My understanding, and I think this is important to share with people who are wanting to develop their psychic senses more. My understanding as of today is that the root chakra, the solar plexus, and the sacral chakra, all three play a very significant role in the opening of our psychic senses. Also, when we heal the wounds and clear the patterns within those chakras, the sacral chakra is the one that manages the psychic senses, and the solar plexus is the chakra that manages the distribution of energy in the entire luminous architecture. When we clear those deeper and deeper levels of those chakras, that's when the psycho-spiritual apparatus begins to shift, and the assemblage point moves up to the back of the throat and opens up the ultra major chakra. And that is what this ascension process is healing the chakras, unifying the chakras, collapsing the subtle bodies, activating the light bodies. But we cannot do those things if our chakras are littered with all of the distortions and unforgiveness of the past. So I made it my mission to clear my chakras, and not just through some random, meditative Kundalini rising experience, which is temporary, because most of that is temporary. To be able to sustain staying in the heart, maintaining a high frequency, that takes a lot of work. And if I had known how much work it was going to be, Gail, I never would have signed up for this. Oh, there is no way. There's no way.
Wow. Well, that's very eye-opening for a lot of people about how important it is to work on yourself, and start recognizing the different programs that you have running in your head. And a lot of the subconscious programming, I'm thinking, is what's coming from the lower chakras. Would you agree with that? Is that true?
The lower chakras, the mental body, the soul agreements, our guides who are assigned at birth that are here. Originally, we came in to learn lessons or experience certain fears and that type of thing.
And we have to learn how to transmute all that. Is that?
Yes, and I think the easiest way is to monitor our thoughts. So our brain is a pharmacy, and our consciousness is the prescribing doctor. Our mind, our consciousness is
Ooh, I
the
like that.
prescribing doctor.
I
Okay.
like that.
And we have unconscious, fractaled, unconscious aspects of ourselves. We have a subconscious that is littered with belief systems that we've accumulated over our life through tremendous numbers of misunderstandings and hurts, wrongs, and disappointments in our life. And that subconscious mind, the unconscious aspects of us, and the collective consciousness programming of the conscious mind in our reality are what prevent us from being a pure expression, expressing our divine voice through the throat chakra. And I find that monitoring our thoughts, if we have a negative thought or a judgment about us or something or someone, saying that's not a kind or loving thought, and then asking for the root of it or the cause of it to be revealed, and you'll understand it to be a belief system or a fear or some projected belief that we were taught in our life, or a program or a pattern or a belief that our mother or father instilled in us, or caretakers or teachers. And that's the easiest way, I think, to do this work. If you don't have money to have a session with a professional, spiritual
Many people
counselor
don't.
once a week for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Most people don't, especially now. Things have
Right.
really tightened up for everybody. So that is something that they have to pretty much go alone at this point in time. But I think that's very valuable advice, because one of the things that, I've been doing for myself is something on that order. Like, sometimes I'll get a negative thought. Like, even when this is a silly example, but you're driving along in your car, and there's a big steep side, thing over, and you think to yourself, oh my God, if I went over that, it'd be, I mean, it's something like, why would you even think that?
Mhm.
Why did that negative thought even come forward? Is it from a past life experience, or is it, and so then it's again, it's like questioning yourself, and where's that coming from, and why am I even entertaining a thought of that nature?
Right.
And wow, that's fascinating. I'm sure that could be very helpful for people, what you just said. I really do. Start listening to yourself in what
Yeah.
you're saying in your head. Is impacting your life on a daily basis.
Yeah. Every thought creates a chemical. Every emotion creates a hormone. Amino acids, peptides, proteins, you name it. I teach classes on where thoughts come from, and I have clinical psychologists, people with master's degree in Chinese medicine, emergency room physicians, chiropractors in my classes. Highly educated
Wow.
people. I've worked with
But they
priests.
don't educate them about this kind of thing.
No. And I've worked with priests and ministers, and I'll be talking to them and I'll say, well, you understand that. I mean, you counsel people on that. So, and they're like, no, I don't. I've never heard this before. And I'm, how can people be out there, counseling people how to handle these things, and they have no clue about where thoughts come from, or how to heal, or how to become more self-aware. So it's very important, and it's something that is really lacking in our world, is an understanding of the complex spiritual apparatus that creates the human experience.
Wow. Do you have any of your classes? Are they on your website for people that they could take them? Are they online classes, or they have to be in person, or how's that work?
I have never thought that I was really supposed to teach a lot of people or be famous or anything like that, or sell programs to 10,000 people for $50 a pop.
Well, you're obviously not that kind of
No,
person.
I love being one-on-one with people and helping them as much as possible in that 1 hour I get, to empower them, to tell them what their superpowers are, to help them feel empowered and validated. I do teach classes, but I limit the number of people in my classes to a very small number, because I want everybody to feel like they're my only student. and they have
That's beautiful.
individual sessions with me. And what I'm hoping is that if I get to impact a handful or a couple handfuls of people, they'll be the ones that go out and influence, tens of thousands of people. I don't have a PhD. I don't see myself as those.
But sometimes that's not a bad thing, because a lot of people refer to that as being indoctrination of, and I'm not saying it's all bad either, because I have some education that I managed to get along the way too. But it's not what makes you real. I mean, you can have masters, a PhD, all kinds of things, and not be able to relate to people on a real level. And that heart to heart is.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a really vast number of people in our society that rely on cultural authority, and education is cultural authority to people who are just on the cusp of science and spirituality. They'd rather listen to Joe Dispenza tell you that it's all about the body. And Joe Dispenza, although he's really helping people, and although he is mostly accurate with what he's saying, he is not giving people the truth. He's telling people that
that's interesting. I just started listening to him, so please continue.
So he says things like people are stuck in the chemical process loops. But what starts the chemical process? He doesn't realize that quantum physics has identified in our nerves tiny microscopic crystals in our nervous system called microtubules. And in those crystals, in the microtubules, are the programming for the thoughts and the unresolved emotions. It's not the body, it's the nervous system on the quantum level programmed. And he tends to just, that's sort of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like the kindergarten version of what's going on with us. It's not just that the body wants it to be a certain way and you have to stop the body from being a certain way. The body holds the memories within the nervous system, and the memories aren't chemical processes. The memories are energetic memories and energetic programming within the liquid, the molecules of liquid, the blood, the cranial fluid, within the nervous system, and the crystals, which Nassim Harriman and Hammeroff, who was an anesthesiologist and was so fascinated with what happens to people when they die and why they have near-death experiences. And so Hammeroff decided, or they came to the conclusion, that the anesthesia interrupts the connection between the soul and the person's nervous system, which I see as very true. Wow. And if you follow their information that they're putting out now, you can see that what I'm saying is 100% true, that the programming, the story, the emotions and judgments of these events that are looping and recreating are being held in the molecules of water. Dr. Emoto,
water has memory, yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. All of those experiences, Lynn, what's her name? Lynn McTaggart, The Field, The Intention Experiment, The Power of Eight, those books. All of these people, Bruce Lipton, epigenetics, those types of people, that information, if you take all of that information, you can take what Joe Dispenza is saying and take it farther and literally see where it exists in the body. And again, he says, well, you trick the body. You use the mind to trick the body. No, we want our heart and our mind to work together. We can't trick anybody or anything. And any spiritual experience, however temporary, we are not tricking. We are elevating our frequency to a place where those patterns can be released and dissolved, right? There's no trick to it. And it's not about training the mind. It's about untraining the subconscious mind, because I'm here to tell you, I can see the construct of the subconscious mind. I can see it. And so
you can see it in individuals or in yourself or what?
Everybody.
In everybody.
In
Wow.
everybody. So eventually, when people begin to believe, people like myself, and compare what we can see, sense, and feel to how far science has evolved, the science that most people won't accept, right?
Yes.
When we get to the place where science has evolved and psychics can compare that information, not put a blindfold on a psychic and see if they get the color right or they can pick what card. That's so silly. That's so last century. Come on, have we already proved, that we are telepathic beings and we can tap into the quantum field and that we can exchange information? Let's go beyond that and use it to really define and help people understand that we are a complex consciousness. We are literally like the universe is like a brain. The neural pathways of the brain is like the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And it's all consciousness. It's all energy. It's all consciousness. And I think when people begin to have conversations like this, then more and more people will really truly heal permanently. It won't be temporary. It won't be healing a little bit, but they just can't get it, the whole way. That's what I'm trying to sell here to everybody.
Wow. Yeah. Well, what I understood from Dr. Dispenza was that the body holds the emotions, which is magnetic, and the thoughts are electric from the brain, which actually exists outside of the body itself, and that's where the quantum comes in there. But that's fascinating because that you even brought him up, because I just been doing a lot of listening to him lately, thinking that he was, had a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm really glad that he's doing what he's doing. I mean, his groundbreaking book, The Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, it's genius, but it's not true that thoughts only come from the mind. Thoughts can be stored in the body too. Thoughts can come from the parasites in our body. Thoughts can come from our DNA, from our genetic lineage, from our grandparents, from our parents. It's not 100% truth. There is some truth to it, but it's not 100%. It doesn't go far enough.
That's fascinating, because one of the things that I also recently heard was in Silicon Valley, where they're always doing all the computer stuff, that they are starting to find out about the memory that can be stored in water, far more than silicon, which they've always used in the past. So now they're, and that just goes along with, what you're saying.
Well, and our body is 97% water. And that's why they say or Dr. Bruce Lipton, I think, in his book, second book, said that thoughts can reprogram your DNA.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the amount of water, because I thought people have been saying 70%. And I was going along with that for a while, but I was thinking when I did that, 70% just does not sound like enough. I think we're far more than 70%. So it was nice to hear you say, what'd you say, 95 or 85? It's a lot more than 70.
If you think, now I'm not a scientist, and so I may get this wrong, but I understand that quantum physicists say that if you collapsed all of the actual physical matter in the body, it would fit maybe in a shot glass. So you think there's room for a lot of water in there? Right?
True.
I'm sorry if I'm blowing your mind.
No, I just thought of something. I lost my train of thought there
because I was jelly brain.
Yeah, it's been happening more lately. I don't know if it's the energies on the planet or what, but it's definitely becoming interesting. So someone put up this. It's unbelievable that you say that that Judy, because I think the map of the earth lays out as an actual brain. I think we are living in maybe an actual brain. I've seen the pictures of that. I understand where that's coming from, but that actually isn't the exact one that I meant to put up there. So let me find the other one. Well, somebody said this, and I think this is, wait a minute. I'm in healthcare. I've seen people change after anesthesia. And then he said this as well, that allowed demons in anesthesia.
Well, it's the same as having 2 drinks of alcohol. You know, the saying in the metaphysical community is 2 drinks and you're out. And who are you letting in? You know, when people black out. But to speak to the anesthesia, Dr. Hammeroff, I think it's Hammeroff. It might only have one M. He partnered with Nassim Harriman to do a lot of experiments. You might be interested in looking up that research. It's fascinating. It's truly fascinating.
Wow.
And you know, who is coming in the body when we leave the body? You know, who are we letting in? People are getting walk-ins. That's very true. And I apologize. I don't mean to frighten anybody. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I am not a fear mongerer. I really, truly don't believe that I am a fear mongerer. I am trying to individually empower people so that we can reclaim our power, strengthen our sovereignty, develop our discernment, shine our light, heal ourselves so that we can fully embody a higher percentage of our soul so that our DNA can be activated and we can evolve. And I believe that even if a small number of us are able to achieve it, it will help greater and greater numbers of people. And that's why I choose to focus on each cat, each dog, each person that is in front of me to help them to the highest level that I am able. On my journey every day, I prayed that everything I was learning on my journey would make a difference and that I could share my journey so that other people's journeys would be easier. And I vowed that I would share it for free. You know, there are a lot of people like me who don't do interviews, who don't do free lectures, and I'm not judging them. I'm sharing that I prayed every day that what was happening to me would have some meaning, and all the suffering and all the pain and the migraines, the severe migraines, the times I went to the hospital and prayed to die from, just the pain I was in, the pain and suffering that I have been through, to be able to share my experience and to share with you everything I learned. And I spent my husband's life savings getting to this point, accumulating this level of understanding. And I never could have done it on my own. I needed all the people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to contribute to my journey. And I know that it costs a lot of money to get help, and I don't want it to. For me, I would rather share as much as I can. It's not fair. I mean, does that mean
I agree. There's some people in the so-called spiritual world that are charging a small fortune, and a lot of people can't even begin to afford it.
Oh, Gail, I will tell you, if I had a Bible, right hand on my Bible, okay, I have paid people $300, $400, $500, $600 an hour, $800 an hour, $1,000 an hour, more than this many times, more.
Wow.
More than, okay. And never, ever, ever, ever have I been helped by anybody that ever charged more than $300 an hour. Ever.
Wow.
Never. They've mostly not been accurate and talked about ridiculous stuff or channeled negative beings, saying they were beings of light and I had to correct them and they would get mad at me. Nobody's ever questioned my channeling. I said, I didn't question your channeling. I just told you were channeling dark beings. Just because something is shiny gold doesn't mean it's loving and compassionate and has, a good intention for you, So I've been through a lot. I've met a lot of people. I've traveled. I've worked with very gifted indigenous masters. And I've worked with a lot of people who will misuse just about anything to get ahead, from your soul to my soul, to plant medicine, to animals, you name it. And I am not willing to sacrifice my experience in this life to misuse any energy ever again. I've done it in the past. I've been shown. My soul took me on a guided journey of every time I made choices that were not loving, kind, compassionate. And I am not here to repeat those mistakes, and I will not.
That's beautiful. And I applaud you for that, because I get upset with light workers that charge a fortune. I don't even like asking for contributions, which I do. But I'm on my own, and I can't make it without it. But I know exactly what you mean. It's disturbing. And I don't even have that high of a numbers of subscribers. So um, it and I still offer it for free, and I've noticed everybody's charging lately. But anyway, that's things are getting more and more difficult, but it shouldn't cost someone a fortune.
No, no.
To I just find it very disturbing. Just like, even in other fields, like in law or whatever, $500 an hour or some ridiculous thing like that. I find that very disturbing.
Right.
Okay, we're
I
good.
mean, I've spent my husband's life savings on this journey, several $100,000, and I've still not paid him back a penny. I charge $189 for a session, but I lose money every year. I give things away for free. I travel for free. I do a lot, I do a lot of charity work. I work with traumatized animals. I constantly give people discounts. I've never paid my husband back a penny, and I lose money every year. So I have to charge something, or we won't be able to keep the lights on around here,
Well, that's where I'm at with what I do.
Yeah.
If I can't pay my rent, I can't do shows, or if I can't pay my utilities or whatever it happens to be. That's really true. And but staying grateful for what you do have,
Right.
and being loving and kind. I just have to say that it just seems like things come to you then. And I'm happy as long as I can pay what I have to pay.
Right.
and it's such a relief in your mind to know that it's covered. But anyway, um, I appreciate what you have said and are doing, because it's real. It's the kind of real that people really want to be able to be a part of. And I might have to contact you for it. But anyway, yes, integrity is very important. And someone else said you must give to get, and there's truth in that too. And you have very unique talents that I haven't come across before. I mean, there are people that have healed themselves, just like even Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, he broke his back and healed it. Same with a guy named Miracle King, who I also had on my show. He healed his back too, just through meditation, without going and having, the normal procedures that you would expect, which I find absolutely fascinating and amazing. But at the same time, it's interesting how someone who's already advanced, like yourself, or evolved, however you want to look at it, and can look at something that someone else is doing and find what's missing that's going to resonate with your average Joe.
Right.
Pardon the name. I mean, with your average person.
Right.
So that's a wonderful thing.
Right. Right. Oh, don't get me wrong. I mean, every single person that's out there, like Joe, Dr. Dispenza, to be respectful. I mean, he is serving a purpose, and he is reaching millions of people, and
Yes.
millions of people need what he is doing. They really do. When people find, and many often do, because they come to me or others like me, that it's not going far enough, it's not helping with everything, that's when this conversation comes into play. And eventually, hopefully, this conversation will become more ubiquitous. And maybe the people that share it more publicly will be more articulate about it than me, or they'll have language that is more accepted in the mainstream or scientific, whereas I can only tell you what I see. You know, I don't have a degree in physiology or biology. I'm not a medical intuitive, but I know when people are dying and what cancer they have. And, you know, and I've never heard these words before and they come in. And so I think this is, I really want to say this because I think everybody, we all have this ability within us. We just need our DNA to be activated. And you can't pay somebody $5,000 or $10,000 to wave a magic wand on you and activate your DNA. Even though I've met many people who have paid people thousands of dollars to activate their DNA. I did that 10 years ago, and guess what? It didn't work.
I'm here to tell you.
It's an
Don't
inside
waste your money.
job. It's an inside job. It's an inside job, right? But we can all do it. And if you even try, set your intention. I give myself permission to heal. I give myself permission to change. I give my soul and my loving, benevolent guides permission to communicate with me. I give myself permission to remember the truth of who I am. I give myself permission to feel safe doing this work. Something's going to happen. Something is going to happen.
Well, thank you.
But let me tell you, paying somebody $500 and laying on a table like I did 3 times a week, every week for a year, guess what? I was $60,000 into that endeavor and nothing happened. Oh yeah, somebody says exercise. So rather than go down the animal communication path, would you like me to share just some simple breathing exercises?
Yes, that would be great. You know, Ginny, if you don't mind, we might have to have you back on.
Okay.
And you can elaborate even more because what you have to offer is so down to earth and valuable for people.
I mean, I would love to share so many stories about animals and animal experience and their soul choices. That could definitely be a show
in itself.
Yeah.
We'll
I would
do
love
that.
to come back. But it feels important for me to give people something they can do at home to begin self-inquiry. And on my website, just so everybody knows, firstly, you can rewind this recording and the statements I just said, I give those to my clients every day. I give myself permission to heal. I give myself permission to remember the truth of who I am. I give my soul and my loving guides who are dedicated to the evolution of humanity, permission to communicate with me and give me messages in my sleep, through books, through messages, through song. I give myself permission to change my body, my energy field, my mind, and my soul blueprint, my DNA. I give you permission to change, and I give myself permission to feel safe doing this. These are all things that I ran up against that was resistance within me, and that's how I've come up with all of these things that I share with people. Now, with respect to breathing, there are so many breathing techniques out there. Kriya Yoga has several different breathing techniques. Tumi, which is a Zen Buddhist breathing technique. Wim Hof method, holotropic breathing. Dr. Andrew Weil, who is amazing, who has a dozen or more books out there, has a book on breath work. There are some physical.
I'm having somebody on pretty soon that does breath work. She calls it circular breathing. That's a whole different approach, I think. But anyway,
now
keep going.
Breathing is genius, but just like a lot of these kind of standalone modalities, if you use any of these things without self-inquiry, without monitoring your thoughts, without trying to communicate with your soul, you're only going to evolve so far. Right? So my suggestion is anything you try, and try whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me what religion you are. It doesn't matter to me what your beliefs are. Everything is complementary in my world, as long as it involves connection to the soul, opening our heart, beginning to activate our psychospiritual apparatus, creating the frequency that activates the DNA. That's evolution. That's evolution. And rarely will you see someone, really become enlightened and involved just because they did some breathing technique every day for 6 months, right? I've seen people who activate gifts and abilities by doing Qigong to, an hour in the morning and an hour at night, and then randomly have some sort of an experience where they activate their psychic senses. But you can see when those people, their lower chakras are not cleared and they go off on a very egoic path.
Ooh,
right?
interesting.
So if you just have a random, like you do MDMA, or you do some sort of psilocybin, or you do ayahuasca, which by the way can elicit unwanted results. If you do that, it's not always as helpful as it can be, because it's not the natural evolution of consciousness where the soul is slowly opening you to deeper and deeper levels of awareness. So I promote a very holistic balance, trying a little bit of everything: diet, exercise, earth, breathing, meditating, and self-awareness, 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 self-inquiry, self-inquiry, self-inquiry. And there's a lot of free videos and interviews that I've done on my website. If you look under interviews and advocacy, on the very top, it says Ginny's favorite interviews or most informative interviews or something. And there's a free workshop there on soul agreements. And people will find that fascinating. If that doesn't change your life, I don't know what will. Understanding what other people's soul agreements look like can give you a clue into your life and the patterns in your life and what your soul agreement might look like. There's one on self-inquiry that I did with Danny Henderson. You will love it. We're kind of silly. She's kind of silly. We maybe go off in the weeds a little bit, but you can fast forward through that part. It's self-inquiry. Pardon me, I'm talking so fast.
You're fine.
So let's do a little bit of breathing. It's sort of like grounding, centering, and balancing that most people don't talk about.
Okay.
So just breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. When I first tried to breathe, I couldn't even lay down without having a panic attack. If somebody tried to control my breath, I would have a panic attack. I wanted to jump out of my skin. So if this triggers you, don't do what I'm suggesting, because I know what it feels like to have somebody try to control my body when I was in fight or flight trauma. All my nervous system was so shut down.
You had that breathing experience too, didn't you? Or from the fentanyl or something like that?
Yeah, my lungs stopped.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
And
that could add to the panic.
Yeah, and then it caused a couple of strokes, and that's why the left side of my face is all shaped so funny and my eyes all squinty. So, okay.
Didn't notice, Jenny.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
You're so kind. Okay, so breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. If it doesn't bother you to count breaths, breathe in for the count of 4, hold it for the count of 2, and exhale for the count of 4. And if it doesn't bother you, inhale for the count of 4, hold it for the count of 2, and exhale for the count of 6. If you can only inhale to the count of 2 or 3, do that. Inhale 1, 2, 3, hold it for 1 second, and exhale just a little bit longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you can do. When we exhale longer than we inhale, we tell the body to go into rest and digest. We get out of fight or flight. Right?
Wow, that's important because everybody is in that nowadays.
And it works almost magically. And I've met people who have not been in their body for years, and we do this breathing technique and they come right in their body. Because how does the soul come into the body? Through the vagus nerve. Nobody talks about that.
And I know when I worked in a hospital, they talk about cutting that nerve if somebody has stomach aches Oh my
No,
God.
it's isn't it so fascinating that now Stephen Porges and all these people are talking about the polyvagal theory and exercising the polyvagal nerve and the vagus nerve, right? And that's how the soul distributes the soul energy in the body. There might be somebody that wants to talk. We'll see what. Let's see. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Now I'm going to switch it up. As you're breathing in through your nose, imagine pure creator life force energy coming down through your head. So the Taoists call it chi, the Hindu, Buddhists call it, the pranic medicine call it prana, the Egyptians called it ki, ki. Metaphysical people call it life force energy, quantum energy. I call it the pure light of creation that has the ability to be all good things. It can be anything. It's the pure light of creation. As you're inhaling, imagine that life force energy coming down through your head. Hold it for a second or two. Exhale. Now we're going to add another piece. As you're inhaling, focus on your feet. Nobody talks about this. There are chakras in your feet. As you're inhaling, imagine calling earth energy up through your feet, the chakras of your feet. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through the mouth, life force energy down through the head, earth energy up through the feet. People always say, oh, you use the grounding cord. The grounding cord orients you. I'm incarnate on Earth, the third planet from the sun. It's May 24th, 2 p.m. Here we are. We are existing on this planet. Our feet house the chakras that bring Earth energy into our luminous architecture, without which we cannot be balanced. Earth energy up through our feet.
I haven't heard that from anyone. I really haven't.
Nobody talks about it.
No, they
There
don't.
are chakras in the knees that refine the earth energy as it comes in. The energy comes up to the root chakra. Earth energy comes down through our head, down the back channels to the root chakra, mixes with that earth energy that's come up through the feet, and distributes it like a water fountain, like a shower of golden green light through our luminous architecture. You're breathing in through your nose. You might get a little dizzy. Exhaling through your mouth, life force energy down through your head, earth energy up through your feet. According to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, they say the optimal ratio is 85% life force energy, 15% earth energy. So for all you scientists out there, as you're breathing into your heart space and you're calling in the life force energy, and we're a toroidal field, right? So it's a constant process. It's a constant, continuous process of breathing in and breathing out. Imagine calling that life force energy down to your heart center. Focus on your heart center. There is a golden light. Different people believe different things. It's at the sternum. It's below the heart. It's behind the heart. I don't care where you think it is. Is there a golden light? For some people, it's the size of a tennis ball. For some people, it's the size of a jelly bean. For me, it was evidence that a fire once burned and there was barely an ember left in the ashes. So mine was so infinitesimal. Find that light and breathe into it. Just as you're walking up to a fire, you think there's no life left. You scatter the ashes and the coals, and you shake one of the coals, and there's a little light in there, and you blow on it, and it ignites the fire, right?
Exactly.
That was what I had to do because mine was almost gone, baby. Mine was almost gone. And some people, a lot of people, it's just the size of a little jelly bean. So as you're breathing, I call it exercising our heart light. exercising our heart light, breathing in, pulsing that light with each breath, growing it to the size of a golf ball, growing it to the size of a tennis ball, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, shining the light of truth, shining the light of truth. Exercising that heart light, growing it to the size of a softball now, and it's just pulsing and vibrating. And every time we breathe in, growing it to the size of a soccer ball, growing it to the size of a basketball, growing it to the size of a beach ball. It's perfect if you have it right at your shoulders. Now, I call this exercising your heart light. You can use this light. I call this illuminating from within. We don't need to call on anybody or ask anybody to heal us. That's your power right there. That's your transmutive light. Your transmutive power is that golden light within you. And I bet some of you have never even seen it before and didn't even know it was there. That is you. That is your soul essence. This right now, this tingly sensation, this peace that has come over you, this is what it feels like to talk to you, to call forward you, to make room for more of you in you. Now you can grow this light to the size of your auric field and just push out all distortion. I highly recommend asking your higher self and your oversoul to transmute everything you're releasing, all of the dense energies that you don't need anymore. Don't give that to the earth. She's busy enough. Don't ask other people for help. You have a higher self and an oversoul. Use your soul lineage. They are here for you. Ask your guides for help. The golden light of grace, the violet flame of transmutation. These are energies that are at our command.
I see when I meditate, lately especially, I see purple and gold.
Yep. Well, that's your third eye and your crown chakra. So you're beginning to express, and I'm sorry to be reading you, but
No, that's okay.
you're beginning to express your consciousness at that level. So I have a client in 5 minutes. So we only have
okay.
5 minutes left. So
Yes.
let me bring people back.
Okay.
So now that you've pulsed your light and you're cleansing your own auric field with your light, now gently bring that light back down to a size that won't offend people at the grocery store, right? You know, there's people that they walk around and their angel wings are all flapping and people look at you funny and they say mean things to you. Our light is triggering them. Okay. So we want to dim it down. Yeah. Dim it down. I mean, I know some people that say, no way, you know how hard I work for this? I'm going to strap myself. It doesn't work out that well for them. I promise you, I'll save you some trouble. So bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. You really don't want it to be much bigger than a volleyball. And even then, if you could bring it in to more the size of a tennis ball. For some people, that might hurt. You can't. You need it to be kind of to the shoulders, the beach ball. That's a little much for people. It's about how I walk around in the world because it kind of hurts me. I get a little bit of a headache if I make it smaller. And I got to tell you, if I don't wrap myself in a bubble of grace or something that's not as shocking as unconditional love, I can agitate people around me. And so can you.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So bring that light back down. And I have 4 minutes before my client.
Okay. As soon as you're done, we can be done.
Right. And just come back, wiggle your fingers and toes. And I hope that was helpful. Do that every day, twice a day. And then I just want to say one more thing, Gail, before we go. And that is, if you really want to say, you know, what is the goal, right? What is the goal? Ultimately, Some of us might be here just to have an experience. We don't have a goal. We don't care about evolution. We don't, none of that matters. We want to be happy. We want to love our dog, our cat. We want to be successful in work and support our family. And that is 100% okay. That is 100% okay. That is perfect. That's not my path. That's your path. That is awesome. And I love you for it. And please shine your light. And that's beautiful. Please contribute to the greater good. Someone like me, I really want to know, how do we get out of this place? Right? How do we get out of this place? And how many people want to come with me? Right?
I'm ready.
At what level are we expressing our consciousness? Are we expressing our consciousness through the root chakra? Fear, competition, staunch religious perspectives, judgment, shame, guilt. If we are expressing our consciousness there, that's our frequency. That's our frequency. Sacral chakra, interpersonal, masculine, feminine distortion, domination and control, prejudice, family, interpersonal relations, right? Sacral chakra. If you're expressing your consciousness from there at the sacral chakra, remember earlier I said this sacral chakra and the evolution, the clarity of that sacral chakra, that's what controls if our psychospiritual apparatus up here begins to open. Solar plexus. If we're expressing our consciousness at the level of solar plexus, doubt, competition, frustration, unworthiness, shame, guilt, giving our power away. Where are we expressing our consciousness? Books by David Hawkins are good. I don't have one of his, but I do. Just a moment. Oh, sorry. I thought it was power.
That's okay. We're gonna have you back.
Force is a good one, and there's one that's like a synopsis of all of his books. I think it's called The Wisdom of David Hawkins. So you might want to read one of those books if you're interested. And on my website, there's a list of, I don't know, 80 or 100 books. Pick one. Just learn something new.
All right. Thank you so much, Ginny. This has been wonderful. And you gave so much information for people to use with tools. So thank you. We're going to have you back. We have to have you back.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll stay.